Before we begin, we just hit 100,000 subscribers, and that's kind of insane. So thank you so much. I'm externally very calm, but internally I'm screaming. Now all we need is 9 more, and we'll hit 1,000,000. Yes. And now let's get into Half Man. Guys, I've been watching Half Man, and I need to process it with someone. We're only halfway into the season, and it's already overwhelming in a good way, and also in a scary way. The show is a coming of age about a closeted gay kid in the late 80s, early 90s in Scotland. It's also about being completely stuck between a rock and a hard place, except the rock and the hard place are the same thing. What do you do when the biggest threat to your life is also the only thing keeping you alive? And the more the story progresses, the more it begins unpacking levels of toxic masculinity through a very unique perspective of a young closeted kid whose first bully is also his first protector and also somehow his sexual awakening. How do you hate someone you need, and how do you love someone you fear? Jesus. Spitting bars. And the more we explore the dynamic between these two stepbrothers, the more the lines of toxic masculinity, homoeroticism, and homophobia start blurring. Because masculinity is this funny little thing that when you perform it to the max, you become kind of gay. Also, the show is from the creator of Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd, and that was a fucking minefield trip of dark shit, but also very insightful shit. I have a video on it if you want to check it out. I'll leave the link somewhere here. Also, it is a highly triggering, messed up story, so content warnings abound for the rest of the video. A lot of violence and sexual violence and homophobia and just, yeah, all that bad shit. So if that sounds like a fun time to you, then get a snack and a drink, sit back and relax, and let me tell you about this messed up story of Niall and Ruben. The show opens and we're at a wedding. People are dancing, having fun, and inside a barn are our main characters. On the left is Niall, looking slim, tired, frail even, and to the right we have our antagonist, Ruben, and immediately hot. Like there's an entire ecosystem of adult content built around this exact aesthetic. I'd ride him till the walls were dripping in sweat. It'd be till the cows come home, the bulls go to work, and whatever else Animal Farm was about. And I'm not afraid to admit it. There's serious tension between these two. Niall is frustrated Ruben chose today, the day of his wedding, to do this, but Ruben is friendly, hugs him, says he's proud of him, and that he looks gorgeous. Kat calls him a little, gropes him, even says if we weren't family, as he's trying to lift up his kilt. And put a pin on this interaction because I will be coming back to it at the end of the video. Ruben then asks Niall to tell him one last time what he is before he loses him forever. And what he is a brother from another lover, which sounds incestuous as fuck, even though they're not blood related. Ruben then punches Neil twice, really hard, knocks him to the ground, and we go back to the past. Almost said back to the future. A few decades prior, and Niall is a slender, insecure 15-year-old kid who is terribly bullied at school. And not to point fingers here, but with that haircut, I'd bully myself. The bullying is mostly homophobic, and it's not just because people suspect that Niall might be gay. It's also because his mother is almost most definitely a lesbian. Niall lives with his mother, Lori, and her friend, Maura. Okay. They're both single, middle-aged women living in rural Scotland together in the same room, in the same bed. They're just good friends. And the thing is, they're not officially together or out, not even to Niall. Niall still holds on to the belief that they're just really, really close friends who just happen to sleep together. But town folk ain't stupid. People talk and things are said. So Niall is also a victim of homophobic abuse on behalf of his mom. Niall even says at one point, imagine the irony of 2 lesbian mothers and 1 gay son. Which, you know, given that this is in the 80s, it was a really tough time. In fact, male homosexuality was decriminalized in England and Wales in 1967, and it took Scotland until 1980 to do exactly the same. That's more than a decade. Ironically, female homosexuality wasn't criminalized because people just chose to pretend that they didn't do that in private. Okay. But even after decriminalizing it, they didn't necessarily make it okay or make it more positive to be gay. They just didn't make it a crime. But it was still pretty much a taboo topic. Niall, as I said, is routinely bullied. And he takes it, always, absolutely incapable of standing up for himself. And to get a sense of how gay these bullies come off as, they keep calling him a fat, which, you know, takes one to know one. They keep shoving him against a wall and getting real up and close with him, which is kind of gay. And then one of the bullies rubs one of Niall's cards in his ball sack for a solid 20 to 30 seconds, only to then shove it in Niall's mouth. How badly do you want Niall's mouth on your dick, sir? Sounds pretty gay to me. As an adult, I'd smack the fuck out of this little but as a bullied gay kid, I can feel the terror that Niall feels. But nothing compares to the sheer terror brought about when he finds out that Maura's son, 17-year-old Ruben, is coming back to school following a 2-year stint in juvenile detention. Why was he there, you ask? Because he bit someone's nose off. Curiously, one of my husband's exes ended up in prison after doing just that. It's like, what is it with British people and noses? Tasty snack. One thing Half Man does really well is navigate Niall's emotions and making us feel the claustrophobic nature of his predicament. Ruben is the epitome of masculinity taken to the extreme. Rude, aggressive, physically intimidating, prone to violent explosions of blind rage that could literally kill someone. Put a pin on that. And Niall is a terrified, closeted kid who can barely muster an entire coherent sentence in the entire episode. He is literally too anxious to speak. I had that too, not just because I was bullied for being gay, but also because I had a stutter. And ooh, my God, speaking in public with a stutter, fuck no. Once the stutter gets going, baby, it's gonna end with me in tears. And Niall and Ruben not only have to live together, they have to share a room. And this is where things get interesting. What makes Ruben so intimidating is also what makes Ruben kind of hot. In a very closeted way. He doesn't beat you up, but he could. And it's like that threat of, am I gonna get punched or not? As a kid, that shit's terrifying because it's confusing as fuck. Niall is in a deep state of denial. So he's having trouble reconciling all of these emotions that he's feeling. And you'd think that with a lesbian mother, it would be easier. And he does allude to that later, that it is pretty stupid of him to not come out when he literally has a lesbian mom at home living with her partner. But with men, it's different. I think that's part of the psyche for Ruben, who accepts his mom, has no problem with his mom being in a relationship with a woman, because he sees it differently. To him, it's just an interesting story he'll tell at a party 10 years later. Whereas when it's two men, it's like the desecration of a man's soul. More on that later. Ruben's violent tendencies may have started when he was raised by the alcoholic drunk who stands outside of their home all night shouting homophobic slurs at their mothers and pleading with his son to come home with him. And when Niall wants to get their moms, Ruben puts him in a chokehold, tells him that no one is to know about this, and they fall on the bed. And the tight chokehold eventually softens enough for Niall to breathe comfortably, but still tight enough that now they're just spooning. Like they're straight up cuddling. And they cuddle all night. And Niall wakes up the next day with a big splotch on his pants. He came. Listen, there are layers to this, but bottom line is, this is very realistic. The intimate hold, the fact that Niall probably felt safe, ironically, because the big scary man spooned him all night after threatening physical pain. This is bad. This is really confusing, and it's really gonna mess with him. On their way to school, some of the bullies shout homophobic slurs at Niall. So Ruben corners him against a wall and almost forces him to ask for help. And when he does, he tells him to go to school so he's not a witness, and holding a box cutter, he goes and he fucks one of the bullies up badly. And although that stops the bullying, that also leaves Niall shitting his pants. So imagine his face when Laurie and Maura ask him to try and convince Ruben to take an exam at school the next day so he can actually stay in school. It becomes very evident that everyone keeps scrambling to cover for Ruben and to give him the best possible chance to succeed in life, despite his many stints in juvenile detention and his many problems, his anger issues, his lack of respect for authority figures. He's just, yeah, they keep ignoring the evil they have in the house and trying to dismiss it as he'll grow out of it. It's just how he is. It's how he's wired. Girls, I never speak ill of the lesbians, but these two, don't start. But it also doesn't help that they infantilize Niall. They treat him like a baby, and that's maybe why he hasn't outgrown out of this sheepish personality that he's afraid to speak up. God damn it. And when Niall sees Ruben in his room, relaxed and dancing, and interrupts him, Ruben puts the fear of the devil in him if he ever tells a soul about what he saw. So Ruben is also not this image of masculinity that he presents to the world, right? It's all performative at the end of the day. It's all a performance. Ironically, the one time that Ruben isn't performing is when he's dancing, when he's carefree, when he knows no one is around to see him be his fruity little self. So Ruben ends up attending the exam, albeit late, and when pressed for time, he freaks out, flips a table, and walks off. But Niall, in the middle of the confusion, ends up answering just enough right questions that Ruben passes his exam. And it actually brings him closer to Mora, who thanks him for keeping her son in school. And then something really fucked up happens. A core memory that is also a destructive, traumatizing event. In the middle of the night, Ruben sneaks into the bedroom with a woman, and they start making out and loudly talking about how they don't want to wake Niall up, almost like they want to wake him up. And Niall is up, and he starts spying on them. And they catch him and they confront him. As in, she climbs on top of Niall and they start teasing him that this is his opportunity to lose his virginity, to be with a woman. And Niall is clearly not into it, looking anxious and scared as fuck. And he tries to get up a couple times where Ruben holds him down. And Niall can't even express how much he doesn't want this because he's afraid Ruben will kill him. So they keep teasing him and realize that he doesn't even have an erection. Eventually, though, Ruben grabs his face and starts breathing into Niall's mouth rhythmically so they can synchronize their breathing and Niall can enjoy. And that closeness and intimacy is what allows Niall to be raped. Because that's what this was. But for Niall, this was also a bonding moment with Ruben. How is he supposed to reconcile these two things in a healthy way without copious amounts of therapy when their first sexual interaction looks like this? It's horrific. And for Ruben, this is just what lats do. The homoerotic aspect of breathing into another man's mouth as he's ejaculating did not even cross his mind. In fact, Ruben says later that this was a thank you gift for Niall's help with the exam. A manly gift for a bro. So, like, the worst part of it all is that in this rape, in this violation, the aggressor is like fully convinced that he didn't do anything wrong. In Ruben's mind, this was absolutely legitimate. It was so cool. It was like the best thing that he's ever done for someone. You couldn't tell him otherwise. He'd kill you if you did. And Niall, confused as he is, dismisses all the negative feelings and emotions he's feeling when Ruben shows him kindness, shows him a brotherly bond that he's never had, like actually protects him, vows to be his ride or die, because their moms, as it turns out, are sleeping together. So Ruben tells him, we are now family. Family is ride or die. And that means that nothing comes between us. Nothing comes before us. And that's fucked up. It's like this unspoken, manly, caveman-like bond that the brotherhood has, you know? It's the same thing with sisterhoods. The difference is sisterhoods don't threaten people's safety. Yeah. We're back in present time, and after punching Niall a couple times, Ruben helps him settle by breathing in his face again, very up and close and intimately. Then he tells him it'll be over soon before covering his mouth. Cut to black. And that was episode 1. So much to unpack in the relationship of these two stepbrothers. The performance of masculinity, but also the genuine anger issues and the different ways in which these two kids are treated and how much attention each of them really gets. But ultimately, it's the manosphere, the real life manosphere outside of the digital. This was the 80s. This was way back when. Before kids were hammering their faces to get bigger cheekbones, which again sounds pretty fucking gay to me, or before kids were injecting their faces to make their jawlines bigger and manlier. Again, pretty fucking good to me. This is where it all started, you know, in the weeds of people's bigotry back when. Episode 2, back in present time, back at the wedding. Before Ruben arrives, we find out Lori is still alive and kicking, but Mora has passed away already. And then she casually tells Niall that Ruben is on his way. No one invited him. No one told him about the wedding, but he found out. He's on his way. And the first couple times that Niall reacts to hearing that Ruben is coming, I thought that he was like exaggerating a little bit. In episode 1, he nearly had a panic attack. In episode 2, he runs off completely catatonic. But having seen the first 3 episodes, he's not exaggerating. I get it. I'd be freaking the fuck out too. I'd be shitting my pants. Back to the past, and Niall is now going to college in Glasgow. And his mom is excited for him to finally be away from Ruben so he can be his own person and have his own interests and his own friends. So they definitely bonded after that event in episode 1. He moves to Glasgow into a shared apartment with Joanna, a very bubbly, all up in your business blonde girl, Celeste, a French exchange student, and Albie, a very friendly gay guy. And Niall has a tough time fitting in. He just lets everyone else control the conversation, push him around. He doesn't even correct people when they mistakenly call him Neil instead of Niall. But he goes out with the girls, and Celeste is laying it on thick as fuck. She wants to find Scottish dick. Her words, not mine. And to make him even more uncomfortable, Albie clocks Niall's act from a mile away and says he can see the performance Niall is putting on and is curious to see what is actually underneath. I know all about the performance. yeah, can clock it a mile away as well. Everything that you do becomes about the performance. How you walk, how you talk, how you sound, how you sit, how you lay down, what you listen to, what you watch. Everything becomes a potential flashing billboard neon sign says, I like dick. Niall then gets blackout drunk and pisses himself on the dance floor, so Albie has to carry him home. So Niall, upon waking up with piss in his pants, freaks out, has a mini panic attack, and calls Ruben in a desperate bid for support and protection. He invites him over. Okay, a lot has changed, right? Episode 1, he was terrified of even seeing him, and now he's like, come save me, daddy. And as soon as he gets there, he's imposing, loud, direct, confrontational, and knowing about a cute French girl, he starts laying it on thick on Joanna instead, hoping that Niall and Celeste will get it on. And then a spin the bottle game leads Ruben and Celeste to make out for like a solid minute. And Joanna's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. It goes on for a while, like they fully make out. And then Albie walks into the room and Ruben does his whole like intimidating thing because he heard about Albie in his conversation with Niall. And he basically forces him not only to give him a handshake, but also to join the spin the bottle game. Niall then spins the bottle and it lands on Albie. And Ruben like bullies them into kissing each other, almost like you have to do it. I don't care if it's a gay kiss. Like in the name of the game, in the name of shits and giggles, it don't matter what you do. But if you had any desire behind that kiss, then that's the sin. And this is what I find so funny, because in a lot of these straight circles, like what straight men do behind closed doors when no one's looking, they must be getting up to so much gay shit in the name of just bros being bros helping each other out, lending a helping hand to a friend, and it's just a full-on blowjob and hand. Don't start with me. They later go out to a club and Ruben has to sneak in because he's not a student and he causes a scene. And then Niall's entire reality becomes about trying to stop Ruben from getting into a fight, because anything can set him on a nuclear rampage of violence, whether it's a shove, a small misunderstanding. Ruben is a ticking time bomb. And so now Niall is anxious as fuck. So he was struggling without Ruben, and he's struggling with Ruben. Niall needs to become his own person. After making out with Celeste hot and heavy, he actually lets her go into the club, tells her he's gonna wait for her, and then leaves with Albie. So yay for the gays talking on the way home, but like never leave your friend in the club after she's taken drugs. Hello. That's like, what the? Don't piss me off. Don't do that shit. That's not funny. On their way home, and this is like the third conversation these two have had. The first two conversations lasted less than a minute. And Niall tells Albie of how he lost his virginity and how his brother was there. And Albie's like, yeah, that makes sense now, why you feel like he's a part of you. And I'm like, this is not enough of a reaction. When it's, oh my God. In a way, opening up about this event almost humanizes Niall in the eyes of Albie, and they end up the evening watching movies at home and talking, and it was such a sad but also tender moment. They both pretty much know the other one is gay and they want to like get it on, but Niall also says that he's never done this and that he wants to go at his own pace. Albie's all good with it and he says, of course, no problem. What would you like to do? We can just talk. We can just watch a movie. And Niall says, how about a hug?
We can hug. Maybe.
And it was like heartbreaking, but also very sweet, but also very heartbreaking that the first time that he's able to be with another man the way he wants, like freely, and all he wants is just the most basic form of affection, but also one of the most powerful ones, a simple hug. That is so sad, but also so sweet. Nonetheless, as soon as Niall hears Ruben getting home, he rushes out of the room in a panic. Baby steps. The day after, though, Ruben wreaks havoc like he does. The night before, he spat on Joanna's face after calling her an ugly whore, then went home, slept with Celeste, and then in the morning did a bunch of drugs, destroyed the house. Celeste is on the chair half dead from whatever high she is on, and Ruben is almost in a manic state. And then Joanna just storms in and says, get the fuck out or I call the police. So Ruben, hearing the police, leaves. That opens the door for Niall and Albie to talk further at night, and Niall actually breaks down in tears. Niall's been nothing but trauma dumping on this guy, but they get it on again, until Ruben enters the house and Niall stops, petrified again. Albie's had enough and explains how he was forced out of the closet by a guy who hooked up with him and then accused him of hitting on him. Yes, the good old strategy of he was hitting on me. I'm straight, man, no homo. Albie's lesson from that story is that he is thankful that someone forced him out of the closet because it was the only way he was ever going to come out. And the way he's saying this to Niall sounds a lot like he wants to push Niall out of the closet. And we don't do that. No, 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 no. No, no, no. We don't out people. No, ma'am. Unless they're Lindsey Graham, don't do it. So Niall decides to tell Ruben, but he gives up on that idea like pretty instantly because Ruben is going through his own shit and he's very abrasive. He even tries to get Ruben to go back home to leave. And that's when Ruben really gets aggressive and violent and threatens Niall and says that what is yours is mine. We share. You don't get to go to fucking fancy college and leave me. You go, I go. We share everything. And Niall, pushover that he is, of course, stay however long you want. But he gets home and he lies to Albie and says, yes, I told him and he was actually really cool. So like Niall is incapable of confronting either of these men for very different reasons. For Albie, because he doesn't want to lose him, and for Ruben, because he doesn't want to die. Okay. Good, 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 good. Problem is, Ruben then gets home, and Albie, of course, wants to praise him, give him his flowers for being so accepting. It is really no easy feat being this accepting when you were such a meathead before. But he quickly realizes that Niall didn't tell him anything. Ruben still doesn't know. And for some goddamn reason, this just pushes Albie over the edge, and he decides to be the one to out Niall. So he's about to out him like forcefully. You're not doing it. I'm gonna do it. Niall tries stopping him, and Albie pushes him off, accidentally knocking Niall down. And instantly, a fit of rage takes over Ruben, who charges at Albie and beats him to a pulp. Niall tries stopping him a couple times, but Ruben just shoves him out of the way, and he continues beating Albie up, like pretty severely. Albie is then taken to the hospital, and Ruben is taken to jail. And then we're back to the wedding. Niall is walking down the aisle, and he is marrying none other than Albie, whose face is still disfigured from the attack. And Ruben is there. And a lot to unpack in that event. Like, that was really intense because Albie had no business outing anyone. Like, shut the fuck up, mind your business. Seriously. Like, just stop talking to Niall. It's that easy. You don't have to insert yourself. You don't have to save everyone. Also, Ruben, prison. That's it. That prison. And Niall, grow the fuck up. Get out of the closet, man. Jesus Christ. Get a new haircut too. Episode 3 starts and Niall and Albie are discussing the fact that Ruben is there. He's an unpredictable loose cannon, but they don't want to call the police on their own wedding. So as they're walking out of the church in what is meant to be one of the happiest moments in their lives, they're actually terrified for their lives. Because Ruben is there, and look at him, he looks fucking intimidating. That's trigger material right there. If you know that reference, you dirty person. Back to the past, and Niall is now graduating from uni, so it's been a few years, and somehow his mother, who is in a lesbian relationship, still hasn't realized that her son is gay. Because she still thinks that Joanna is his girlfriend. Speaking of Joanna, she remained close friends with Niall. Celeste went back to France, and Albie was in a coma for 6 months. He woke up, and then a few years after, he decided to press charges. The reason why he waited so long is a mystery. They don't know, but it is strange, and it is causing Ruben to change his tactic. And that's what Laurie is there to tell him, to go speak to Ruben because he's going to change his tactic, and it involves Niall. And Niall is freaking out because he might be outed once the court proceedings start. So he goes to Ruben, and Ruben's new tactic is for Niall to say that Albie groped Ruben. That way, Ruben can convincingly argue that he was merely defending himself from a sexual predator, a sexual deviant. And Niall is the only one that can do that because he's the only one that was there in the room. He goes to his mom, who tells him, I think you should do it. I think you should lie on that stand and put your entire future at risk. And Niall is not with it. Niall is not with it for many different reasons. First, it didn't happen. So if he gets up there and says it did happen, it's a lie and he could actually go to jail. But also he has to rely on the narrative that he was a sexual predator and that's why he got beaten nearly to death when that was not the case at all. And that only pushes forward this false notion that gays are sexual predators by nature. It's like a lot of levels of fucked up what he needs to do to help his brother, but he's also got no choice. Somehow he's given some time to consider it, and he's feeling pulled in every different direction. So when Joanna compliments him a few times, he sleeps with her. I don't know if it's because she's the only person that's kind to him, or if maybe he is fearing a future where he doesn't get to go to Oxford and live his life elsewhere and he ends up stuck in this small town, so he might as well just get a wife now. Or maybe it's his last-ditch attempt at trying to have a normal heterosexual life close to home so he doesn't have to go out and escape this, I guess. The episode is all about him wanting to go to Oxford. He has an interview to go study creative writing, but he feels like he messes it up because he has so much on his mind. He speaks to his mom again, who eventually finally reveals that they're insisting with him so much because Maura is dying, and she doesn't want her son to spend the last years of her life in prison. And I gotta say, as far as compelling arguments go for helping someone, that is a really fucking compelling argument. When your own mother is telling you this, it's like, fuck. It's, but it's like Niall has no one in his life that is like the voice of reason, the voice of don't fuck up your life for this toxic energy in your life, like even his own mom. You know what I mean? That's messed up. They have this mentality of constantly covering for Ruben, forgiving his sins, saying that boys will be boys. They have like a hard time really confronting the crimes that Ruben has committed. They're quite frustrating, actually. Like over dinner, Joanna makes the remark that sometimes you have to separate the child from the parent, a comment that rubs Maura the wrong way. Even after several stints in prison and after sending several people to the hospital, after violent attacks, Maura's still trying to excuse her son, saying that he has an illness, this anger that takes over him and he's not able to control himself. And Joanna just tells her to her face, he seemed pretty calm to me when he spat on my face after calling me an ugly whore. Oh, Joanna. That was very classy, Joanna. Yes, that's how you do it. But Joanna also finds out that Niall is planning on lying on stand and saying that Albie groped Ruben. And she pleads with him not to do it, to no avail. And then Ruben shows up, he drives off with Niall, and when Niall hesitates about what he's gonna say in court, Ruben stops the car, after almost crashing it, gets out, and physically threatens Niall again. Niall is finding it difficult to believe the logic of the argument that if he only groped you, you would beat him up enough that he would be in a coma for 6 months. And then he even says, I've seen a guy stab you, and by that evening you were eating Cheerios. And that's when Ruben really loses it, and he says, when someone stabs you, they attack your body. When someone gropes you, they attack your soul, who you are as a man. And he has this very visceral reaction. Because it's fucking different! That you can really see how fragile his masculinity really is, how afraid, terrified, horrified, how angry he gets at the idea, at the mere thought, the possibility of someone perceiving him as anything other than the manliest masculine man that has ever walked the earth. A man who would allow himself to be groped by another man and not beat the fuck out of him? This is a man we're talking about. This is about protecting the sanctity of his manhood. And I just know that Ruben goes around groping women like all day, every day. And I find it so funny that men are just so insecure that they can't handle like a tenth of the attention that they force on women. Mind you, he wasn't even groped, but just the idea, the hypothetical fake idea of someone even groping him just sends him into this spiral of hatred. And this is how damaging toxic masculinity is. And this is how damaging patriarchy is on men as well as women. Y'all think that being manly and boys will be boys and never crying, never talking about your feelings and just taking it all in the chin and moving on like a man, getting home, drinking beer, watching sports, and that's it, simple life, and not processing your emotions, you think that makes you better and stronger? No, that makes you a ticking time bomb for violence and like make love, not war. You know what I mean? Like go to therapy, please. And it's a similar reaction that he had when Niall caught him dancing. It all comes down to how he's perceived by other people, how well he's performing this masculinity of his, because that is all a performance. And after a lot of emotional blackmail, Niall agrees to lie on stand. He gets home and Joanna is there after having been to see Albie, who told her the full truth. And she is very good in this scene, Joanna, the character. It's very good because she is very sympathetic towards Niall. She understands the pain he's always been in now that she knows, and she sympathizes with him and tells him that nothing about him is wrong the way he is. But then she's also very stern in her condemnation of what Niall is planning to do, spewing all of this hatred when he shouldn't, when he doesn't have to. Joanna started off as like a nosy girl all up in your business, but honestly, so far, she might be like the best person that Niall has met. And that's when he finds out that he actually got into Oxford to study creative writing, which was his absolute dream. So the court date arrives, and Niall testifies over the statement change that he's made. He has now added that he saw Albie grope Ruben. He's grilled over the inconsistencies of his story until he has to state whether or not he thinks Albie is a sexual deviant. And somehow, out of nowhere, Niall has had enough and he grows a backbone and says loud and proud, no, Albie didn't grope Ruben. He didn't even touch him. And without missing a beat, in a fit of rage, Ruben jumps out of his seat, screaming, threatening to kill him. And then we cut to present time. Ruben sits next to Niall and then prepares to give his wedding speech, where he is going to tell the guests all about Niall. And that's the end of episode 3. That's the end of the first half of the season. Wow. You know, Baby Reindeer was really good, so I had high hopes for this, and I am not disappointed. It's very interesting seeing Richard Gadd on the other side of this dynamic of violence and danger. Like in Baby Reindeer, he was being stalked, he was the one scared, and now he is the threatening presence in the room, and my God, does he play the role well. I don't know if he bulked for it, if he was already there. I don't remember him looking like this. Goddamn. Like if you needed a reason to watch the show, hello. It would till the walls are sweating. I did say put a pin on that earlier, and we were going to come back to it at the end of the video. Here we are. And that was in the first episode, their very first interaction. Ruben is very sexually suggestive, groping him, etc. And that made me think that the relationship between them had been more than just stepbrothers, that they may have actually had an intimate romantic relationship of sorts, or even just purely sexual. And I think that misdirection was put there specifically to put us in the confused mind of a confused Niall in the past. And now looking back, after knowing that Ruben had no idea that Niall was gay, and Ruben now probably just found out about it after he went to prison. So they've likely not had an interaction after Ruben found out that he's gay. So now I'm seeing this as just homophobic teasing. It could be both. I don't know why I'm overanalyzing that, but it was interesting, the misdirection, making us think that these two might have actually slept together, because from that first interaction, if anything, I imagine the relationship may have been not a relationship, but like an abusive dynamic where Ruben would routinely rape Niall. I really thought that's what we were gonna see. So I'm glad it's not that. I'm glad that it's not that, like, because that would have just been too much. This, I think, is very interesting because the writing is really good, and they're really able to explore so many different facets of the dynamic between these two brothers. Not only between them, but how they exist in society, how they perform in front of different people, and how much the perception of who they are affects who they are, if that makes sense. It's very incredibly layered, and the way that things are revealed, how much it shows, it works well to put you in the mindset of the main character. That fear that consumes him, I felt it watching it. I felt claustrophobic whenever Niall felt claustrophobic. I felt like I was having a panic attack anytime that Niall started hyperventilating. And then there's a grittiness to the TV show, which feels very like of the time, especially like the setting of the past, Scotland back in the 80s, gray skies, just like a gloomy aura all around, because Niall's life is just a shit show of misery. Damn. And this is where you start to see the effects of the manosphere, right? This is where you start seeing kids turning one way or the other. This is where you see all of these formative events that affect young men for decades and decades after. It's these formative years that you actually have to pay attention. This is when you teach them good values, and this is when you teach them emotional maturity. This is when you help them process their feelings and emotions so they can grow up functional adults. You start by dismantling the toxic aspects of the patriarchy. And the ironic thing is, if we really wanted to get down to it, if we really wanted to be honest with ourselves and figure out why shit ain't working, it's because we would be working better under a matriarchal system. Biologically speaking, women are better at designing systems. Women are better at making decisions for the community, for the whole. Women are better at governing. Men are better at lifting heavy shit. If we really want to get down to it, the patriarchy is the problem. Don't know what to tell you. Who am I going to convince, right? I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be covering the rest of the season by episodes. There's 3 left, or if I'm just going to wait until the end of the season to do a final season wrap up. I will say that breaking down 1 episode per video would allow a lot more dissection of the details, but I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments down below what you'd prefer. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to leave it a like down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the bell notification so you never miss a future upload from me. And once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for 100,000, and here's to the next 100, and soon enough we'll be at 1 million. Ooh, then it's over for y'all. Then I'll be on top. Then I'll finally get an editor. But until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. Bye, guys. Ainda te lembras de mim?